What's going on, y'all? Right now, y'all listening to the That's Textbook Sports podcast. If you haven't already, like this video, subscribe. If you've seen some of my previous videos that I made, make sure you like those too. Subscribe. The links to all my social medias, that includes TikTok, Spotify, Twitter, YouTube, etc., is going to be linked into the description. So make sure you go ahead and follow me. Check the description. And today, it is Friday, the best day of the week. October 27th, 2023, just a couple of days from Halloween, and the day of, I should say the official day of, Game 1 of the World Series. Arizona Diamondbacks going to be heading into Austin, Texas to take on the Texas Rangers. Personally, before this game, I like the Texas Rangers in this game, although I think both of these teams have faced a lot of adversity this postseason. You really can't count out the Arizona Diamondbacks in the type of season that they've had, and that's just baseball. I mean, the Arizona Diamondbacks, they've only got 84 wins this season. Many didn't expect them to make it to the playoffs or to even be here. They were the last team to clinch a playoff spot. Now they're in the World Series fighting for a championship. That is baseball, and that's sports altogether. It's not about who has the best regular season, but who plays better when the season progresses and as the season goes on. Obviously, it's both of these teams. I like the Rangers in 6 games for this one. Have college football tomorrow. Not the most impressive slate. NFL football. Plus, we got a game Thursday night that we'll be talking about. NBA basketball opening night. First 2 games into the season for some teams. Suns, Lakers. Talking a little bit about that. Got a great episode. Make sure y'all tune in, follow, like, subscribe, etc. Let's just get into this podcast. As y'all know, that's textbook. So, last night, we had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going up against the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills, the past couple of games, have been having a really rough stretch. Josh Allen hasn't been playing particularly well. Same goes for the defense. And what I've been harping on for this Buffalo Bills football team is that outside of Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, they really don't have a whole lot of guys that they can go to or that put fear into defensive coordinators in terms of game plan, scheme. Well, recently, Dalton Kincaid, their first-round draft pick, the rookie out of Utah, tight end, has been playing really phenomenal and superb football the past couple of games. You look at his game against the Patriots, 8 catches, 75 yards. Then last night, 5 catches, 65 yards, hauled in his first career touchdown. If Dalton Kincaid becomes more consistent in this offense, it takes them to another level, and it takes the Buffalo Bills to another level, in my opinion. They're still contenders based on a week-to-week basis. Sometimes they don't look like contenders. Overall, how this team's shaped, I like them a lot. Now, do they make a really deep run into the playoffs? I don't know. But if Dalton Kincaid and Gabe Davis, who had a really good night, but Gabe Davis, in general, usually has one really good game where he'll break out and get a lot of stats, call in a touchdown or 2. Then he'll have 4 or 5 games where he's only getting 4 catches for 48 yards, 35 yards. So he's got to be more consistent. But if they get more out of Dalton Kincaid and he's consistent, and you can use him and Dawson Knox in 12 personnel, I really like that for them. It makes them just that much more difficult to defend and exciting. Defensively, they did a really good game. I mean, they were getting pressure to Baker Mayfield. It was looking like the defense that they had in the beginning of the season, especially when they faced off against Tua and the Dolphins. Then again, for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, this game in general really wasn't even a game. It was 24-10. Buffalo had all the momentum. They controlled this game from start to finish. But then it started to get interesting. And I was really puzzled and curious as to why the Bucks offense was letting the play clock go down to about 4 seconds when you should be in your 2-minute offense. And I was surprised as to why they weren't pushing the ball down the field. Listen, Baker Mayfield doesn't have the best arm, but you at least got to try a couple of deep shots down the field to keep the defense honest. Baker Mayfield also, I thought, in this game, had really happy feet in the pocket, really indecisive, wasn't really confident. And listen, credit to the Bills defense. They were on top of everything. They were having everybody covered. But this is a Bucks team that's really overmatched. I thought that the Buccaneers pass rush was going to get to Josh Allen, and you saw the past couple of games the Bills pass protection hasn't been really great. That didn't happen. And listen, the Bucks, they were overmatched in this game. Buffalo controlled all the momentum. Baker Mayfield was indecisive. They couldn't push the ball down the field. We could say all we want about that Hail Mary, and it was most likely, I was gonna say probably, but I've never seen a Hail Mary attempt that wasn't touched by an offensive player or a defensive player. And had Chris Godwin located the football, he's got a really good chance of catching that football, and they win the game. Could've, should've, would've. Bills dominated this game. We got to give them credit. They handled it, but then you look at the score, it wasn't that pretty. As I mentioned, if they can get someone else to step up and be consistent on that offense, it takes them to another level, and it just makes them that much more dangerous. Going on to the NBA, Phoenix Suns, LA Lakers. Lakers came out really sluggish. I would say the first 3 quarters. You could even say up until they're running the fourth quarter, they were really sluggish. Listen, Phoenix Suns, they didn't have Bradley Beal. They didn't have Devin Booker. Controlled that game. I believe the largest lead in that game for Phoenix was 12 points at one time. Kevin Durant, his legs were just tired at the end, and you could see it. At about the 7-minute mark in this game, it felt like the final 2 minutes of a basketball game. Neither team really could score a bucket, and it was stuck at, like, I want to say 87-84 or 87-86. Neither team could really get anything going. What caught my attention for the first 3 quarters was that last year this is a Lakers team that controlled the boards. They really weren't controlling the boards right now. And I don't know, outside of Anthony Davis, who's going to control that board? Listen, Rui Hachimura, the most underrated player in the league, his role and what he provides to that basketball team, really crucial and important. I think he's got to have more minutes, and he has to have more of a larger role for this Lakers team. Christian Wood, he provided some good rim protection minutes. You could see his defense against Kevin Durant really giving KD some fits. And then also on the Lakers, LeBron James playing, what was it? I think he played 30 plus minutes. They were looking at taking him out in the fourth quarter. They decided not to. The Lakers go on a run. They win this basketball game. I don't believe in moral victories, but for the Phoenix Suns, without Devin Booker, without Bradley Beal, to have it just be Kevin Durant and a bunch of your role players, your bench guys, and to lose in that fashion where you controlled a majority of the game, you have to feel good about yourself. You still feel good about the Los Angeles Lakers, their team I have predicted to win it all in the NBA Finals. Last night on the TNT broadcast, Shaquille O'Neal, I felt the same way he did. If this is a Lakers team that we're thinking is going to be in the championship, a championship contender with Devin Booker, Bradley Beal out. You have to control that game. You have to really have a convincing win. Listen, the guys, Kenny, Chuck, they made a lot really good points. The West is gonna be a gauntlet for any team. Listen, the Dallas Mavericks, they didn't make the playoffs last year, but they're still a tough team to face. They're one of those teams that if you have to face a team like, let's say Denver, one of those top teams in the NBA, the following round, you don't want to face the Dallas Mavericks. So the West is a gauntlet. There's going to be a lot of teams and a lot of times when it's really close. My thoughts on the NBA game. And then we have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and a bunch of these Cam Thomas. A lot of these young guys really stepping up. SGA, 31 points, efficient scoring, all the stats. He is, in my opinion, the best nonchalant scorer and yet so effective. When you're watching a basketball game, you see a lot of these guys, they're going full steam, full speed. But with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, it's like a relaxed, real nonchalant. Some people call it basic moves, but he's so effective at it. Really good 3-level score. The Oklahoma City Thunder are going to be a team that I have making the playoffs. I don't think they get out of the first round. I think they win probably 2 games if it goes really well for them. But what they have, and then of course we know their general manager, whoever's managing them, is going to have a boatload of first round draft picks and all these picks. This is a team that come 2026, they're going to be a championship contender, along with the Minnesota Timberwolves, along with the Sacramento Kings. And while on the subject of the Sacramento Kings and the Minnesota Timberwolves, De'Aaron Fox, Anthony Edwards, my top 2 MVP candidates this season. De'Aaron Fox, clutch scorer in the fourth quarter, an efficient scorer, can get it anywhere, 3-level scorer. Then you have Anthony Edwards, just athletic, 3-level scorer, can get a bucket just about any way he wants. These are the next futures of the league. These are 2 teams I have in the top 4. Sacramento Kings, that on paper, a lot of people will say, well, this isn't a team that's really impressive. You know, with Malik Monk, then you have Keegan Murray, who was a rookie last year, but he showed a lot in his rookie year. Now, can he capitalize on it in year 2? The Sacramento Kings can shoot the lights out of the arena. They remind me of a similar or a young Golden State Warriors team with what they have. Then they have Mike Brown, defensive coach, Davion Mitchell, really underrated guard defender. The Kings and the Timberwolves, don't be surprised if one of these 2 teams is in the conference finals, because that's just how good these teams are, the type of young talent that they have, an overall bench. Like with the Minnesota Timberwolves, you can go to Naz Reid. Then you've got an elite frontcourt with Rudy Gobert and Karl-Anthony Towns, combined with the Anthony Edwards. Then Jaden McDaniels, I think he's the best defender in the NBA right now. And then the last thing I want to talk about with basketball, the Chicago Bulls, after opening night and a loss, already have had a players-only meeting. It really can't get any worse than that for the Chicago Bulls. This is a team I have projected to be in the lottery. I mean, I don't know if this has ever happened in any type of professional sport, the NBA per se, to have after one game a players-only meeting. The type of dysfunction that has to be in that locker room before the season even begins. Now this is a coach that has to get a locker room together before the season starts or just as the season started. It can't get any much more worse than that for the Chicago Bulls. Now, lastly, I did say this was the last topic I'll talk about for the NBA. But lastly, Philadelphia 76ers, Milwaukee Bucks felt like a playoff game and a playoff type of atmosphere already. I know that's crazy to say on opening night and during the first week of the NBA, but that's just the type of vibes and feelings you got from this game. Damian Lillard in his new place, 14 points in the last 4 minutes. This is exactly what they got Damian Lillard for. Someone to take the pressure off of Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis before, sometimes he would look for that 3 ball just because we knew he was so good inside the paint and near the rim. Before Damian Lillard got here, this was Giannis. He would take a 3-point shot sometimes and everyone was like, no, why? And he was even trying to evolve his 3-point shot just to give his team that extra boost. Now with Damian Lillard, he is the second best shooter. We all know Steph Curry is the best shooter in the NBA ever. But Damian Lillard, the second best shooter right now. The fact that he can get his shot on the dribble, off the dribble. What this adds for this team. And the pick and roll that they can use. This opening night, the game against Philadelphia was just a summary of what this team could be and how it could look. In my opinion, it's those two. It's Boston and Milwaukee in the East. And then you have everyone else sort of filing in. Then for the Philadelphia 76ers, James Harden wasn't there. Joel Embiid had himself a night. And I think for this Sixers team, like they need someone else. They need someone else who can create and score. I think Tyrese Maxey is that guy for them. Tyrese Maxey has to have a more significant role for this team. I like the fact that the 76ers have Nick Nurse as a coach because Nurse, in his time in Toronto, they've always had really good role players, guys who buy into their role, 3-and-D, play really good defense, can score, cut to the rim. I like that they have all of that with them. But as I mentioned, they need someone else who can be a dominant scorer. I think that's Tyrese Maxey for them outside of James Harden. Maxey has to have a larger role for this team for them to take it up a couple levels. So for college football, this Michigan investigation just seems to be getting worse and worse as the days go on. It's like milk that you leave unattended. Every day it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. For some of y'all who don't know, Michigan is supposedly, reportedly, paid someone on their staff to go to future opponents' games to videotape their hand signals, audible calls. Apparently, they even gave away some signals to another team to prevent one team from making the college football playoff. There's videos out there on social media of where Ohio State's making an adjustment. The Michigan players are looking to the sideline. The coaches are looking to Ohio State's sideline, finding the sign, then relaying the message. There's videos of this staffer at Michigan. He's on the sidelines, so you'd have to think that the coaches and a lot of the program knows with this guy being on the sidelines. He's reportedly got files, holding a file with hand signals on it and gestures for audible calls. And a lot of people are saying, well, why? What's the big deal about this? You can see it on the broadcast. A lot of people try to steal another team's signals. Or they even say you can know an opponent's whole game plan You can know what they're going to run, but you still got to stop it. Okay, fair point. Those are all really good and valid points. But then there's levels to this. Like, there's levels to knowing that the Eagles are going to run the tush push on 4th and inches and at the goal line, and you having to stop it. But then there's levels of you paying someone on your staff, going to future opponents' games, about 30 opponents' games, videotaping their signals, relaying that to everyone on the staff. Supposedly, this so-called staffer was paid on some kind of PayPal or something like that, and it was made public. It just gets worse and worse. And a lot of coaches, even Nick Saban, had said, well, I think that this is the time for the NCAA and college football to move forward with mics and helmets. So that way the guys on the sideline, or if they're in the box, can change, audible the play, check to a different play, as opposed to using a hand signal or a sign. Yeah, that's valid, but I feel like using that in this situation for Michigan is saying, well, we know it's bad, but why don't we do this? Like, you get caught paying someone, you're stealing signals, and you've been doing it supposedly since 2021. Michigan had their level up in 2021. That was the first time they beat Ohio State. They went to the Big Ten championship. Then the year after that, they go to the college football playoff. They beat Ohio State again, another Big Ten title. For a team that before was in dogfights with Rutgers and other schools on the similar level. I understand, and I would encourage, yes, using mics, audio in helmets to check to a different play call. But it also feels like rewarding bad behavior in a sense. What do y'all think? My audience out there, I appreciate every single one of y'all. If you haven't already, like this video, like my previous videos, make sure you subscribe. Hit the follow button on all my social medias. Those are going to be linked in the description. Make sure you go check that out. I appreciate your support in this podcast, your participation in this podcast. All of it means a lot to me. But let me know what you think about this Michigan deal. What should be the type of punishment they should face if the NCAA or the Big Ten, which is looking most likely like the Big Ten, could have the ruling done at some point in time, or a lot sooner than the NCAA would. What's the type of punishment do they need to face? And do you agree that the NCAA in college football should move forward to mics in the helmets? Let me know your thoughts. I appreciate it. So now for the NFL, we've got our Week 8 game picks. Last night, picked the Bills. They won. Now going on to Sunday, Texans at the Panthers. Both teams coming off a bye week. Feels like Bryce Young and this offense could get something going after the bye. But then you also can feel the same way about the Houston Texans. I like the Texans in this game. I have to give the edge to what CJ Stroud is doing right now and the phenomenal type of play he's displaying. Then LA Rams, Dallas Cowboys. This one really just lies in the trenches. Micah Parsons and this Dallas Cowboys pass rush going up against the Rams offensive line. We saw how it worked out last year when these two teams faced off. That was the main story. Tony Pollard went off. Now the LA Rams, they do have a lot more weapons, and they're a lot better offensively. Fixed up the offensive line, have some guys playing really good, but on the tackles is where this game is going to be won for the Rams. Can't have a lot of those play action plays, deep shots. Going to have to get the ball out really quick, run the ball efficiently, but I still like the Dallas Cowboys in this one. Next up, Vikings and the Green Bay Packers. Minnesota Vikings. Every couple of years we say that there's a team, like last year, the Detroit Lions. They were 1-6. Teams that start off really slow, getting into late October, but early November they start to pick it up. That could very well be the Minnesota Vikings. I'm going to put my claim on it that this is that team. Jordan Addison playing really well. That the trenches and that offensive line protect Kirk Cousins. Defensive pass rush, getting to the quarterback. Give me the Vikings in this one. New Orleans Saints, Indianapolis Colts. Saints, I feel like for them to get their offense going, or the person that really ignites this offense that you really don't expect, is Taysom Hill. He's like that Swiss Army knife, or if a Swiss Army knife was a football player, that would be Taysom Hill. Does everything for this offense. He's the team's quarterback. He's the team's tight end. He can be the team's wide receiver, the team's running back. That's going to be key for them. Indianapolis Colts, though, with Gardner Minshew, they've been playing in a lot of really close games. Shane Steichen is dialing up some really great play calls. Josh Downs really emerging right now. I like the Indianapolis Colts in this one, coming off a tough loss at their home versus the Cleveland Browns. If a couple calls or one call go their way, they most likely win that football game. Now, the interesting one here. Now, this could be an upset, this next one. New England Patriots at the Miami Dolphins. We already know the story with Bill Belichick and quarterbacks, how he gives them fits. They got J.C. Jackson. Credible story if you don't know it. J.C. Jackson gets paid by the Chargers, then he gets cut, goes back to the Patriots, just following in the footsteps of what he did in New England. Miami Dolphins, looks like Tyreek Hill is going to be available this game. It was a close game when they played early in the season and Sunday night. Going for a toss-up. Patriots coming off some really good momentum. I'm going to go with the upset here. New England Patriots, I'll take. Then the Jets and the Giants. Both teams going to be playing at home. Giants playing really good offense. And Tyrod Taylor is going to be the starting quarterback once again. They play really well with him. Quarterback controversy there. Jets, defense, their defensive line. I don't think Saquon Barkley is going to have a really good game. If Barkley doesn't get going, who else do the Giants lean on? Maybe that's the rookie Jalen Hyatt. Jets coming off a bye. This one is a toss-up. I'll go with the Jets just because that defense, week in and week out, always playing up to par. Jacksonville Jaguars, Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. I like the Steelers in this game. Listen, Jaguars, it hasn't been horrible or it hasn't been a nightmare, but it also hasn't been pretty for them. Not a whole lot of convincing wins. Pittsburgh Steelers, looking at their offensive stats, you wonder, how is this team 4-2? It's the Mike Tomlin effect. No matter what year, what roster he has, it just seems like his team is going to finish either at 500 or a game above 500. I like the Pittsburgh Steelers in this one. Always a team that starts off somewhat kind of slow, but in November, late, they're going to get things going. I like them in this game. Jaguars coming off a couple of really close games that they've won that they really shouldn't have. Atlanta Falcons, Tennessee Titans. I'm going to go with the Falcons here. I don't think there needs to be much more said. Titans, looking at shopping Derrick Henry. Maybe he goes to the Bills. Maybe he goes to the Ravens. Going to be starting Will Levis. A team that is hitting the reset button already. Falcons defense playing really well. This will be finally the time when the Falcons offense scores more than 20 points. I'm going to go with them. Eagles Commanders. It was close before. Commanders been playing really bad recently. I'm going to go with the Eagles. Browns Seahawks. Seahawks are really good in 12 personnel when they utilize 2 tight ends. They're really efficient. Browns defense, really, really good. Myles Garrett does just about everything for them on defensively. Game's a toss-up. Deshaun Watson isn't going to be playing. I'm gonna go with the Browns. You know what? Actually, I'm gonna change that pick and I'm gonna go with the Seattle Seahawks. I like the Seahawks. The defense has been playing really good. I'm going to take the Seahawks in that game. I think with all the type of offensive weapons that they have, they're going to do really well. Now, it is going to be a struggle because that Browns pass rush is going to get at Geno Smith. So the Seahawks, who are very efficient, as I've said, in 12 personnel, going to have to use that again. They escape with the win here. Ravens, Cardinals. Cardinals really on a decline. Ravens looking like one of the best teams in the NFL. I'm going to go with the Ravens here. Chiefs, Broncos. I'm going to go with the Chiefs. Bengals, 49ers. It depends if Brock Purdy is going to start for the 49ers. Entered concussion protocol. I believe last time I checked, he did practice on Wednesday. Toss up here. Can the Cincinnati Bengals protect Joe Burrow? And can they emit or get a similar game plan as what the Vikings did with those receivers, with how the 49ers secondary has struggled? I think this is a big day for Chase, Higgins. I'm going to roll with the Bengals here. Bears, Chargers, Sunday night. Somehow this matchup is on Sunday Night Football when both of these teams are combined 4-9. Chargers, you know they're going to Chargers. Somehow, it doesn't matter what game or what team they play against. It's going to come down to a one-possession game. Can Justin Herbert deliver? Tyson Bagent's going to be starting at quarterback. You know what? Give me the Chicago Bears in this game. Just because there's a lot of uncertainty with the Chargers that I feel right now. For them defensively, also offensively, Bears really didn't have to do much against the Las Vegas Raiders last week. They just leaned on DJ Moore and D'Onta Foreman. I think D'Onta Foreman has another great game. I'm going to take the Bears in an upset, if it is one. Then, Monday Night Football, Raiders, Lions. This is the week where the Lions get right once again. Coming off of a demoralizing, just gut punch loss where they got ran over by the Baltimore Ravens. They bounced back this week at home and beat the Las Vegas Raiders. That's with or without Jimmy G in the starting lineup. Those are my game picks for this Sunday. Let me know what y'all think. Let me know your game picks in the comment section. What should I change? Or what team do you have winning opposed to the other? I appreciate your support. Once again, follow me on social media. The links to that will be in the description. Like this video, be a friend, tell a friend, share this video out to others, subscribe. I appreciate it. It means a lot to me. Y'all mean a lot to me. Thank you. So Tyrod Taylor steps in for Daniel Jones, and immediately he's already in a better fit than Daniel Jones for this football team. Playing a lot better, playing with a better tempo, better rhythm. Even with the Giants' offensive line that's been a makeshift offensive line that they just put together and just glued. Daniel Jones, with an offensive line, I would say probably better than what Tyrod Taylor's had. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't play nearly as good as Tyrod Taylor. In my opinion, this is the easiest sign that's just evident out there. The elephant in the room that the New York Giants, I don't know if they're discussing about or whatnot, to say, hey, let's cut the ties with Daniel Jones. We know, let's not let our ego get ahead of ourselves. We know we made a mistake. We overpaid for a quarterback. Last year, we overachieved. We were in a lot of close games. We won a lot of them. Paid our quarterback an insane amount. He's not it. You have to cut the ties with Daniel Jones. Go with Tyrod Taylor. If you win a couple of games and you land outside of the Caleb Williams sweepstakes or Drake May, that's okay because this is a really deep quarterback class. So you could possibly get someone else. Or you could rebuild. If the team keeps winning more games, you could rebuild this team still with the process of Tyrod Taylor, then have everything set up for that franchise guy. Of course, the difficulty with that is, if you're winning a whole lot more games, you're most likely, obviously, not going to get the best shot or the top of the top for quarterbacks. In my opinion, the Giants just have to cut their ties with Daniel Jones, admit that they were wrong, they made a mistake, and move on. It just helps this team so much more in the future and in the long run. And so, lastly, to conclude this podcast, when USC and Caleb Williams lost once again to Utah for the third straight time, there were a lot of people in the media that said Caleb Williams, his Heisman hopes are done, college football playoff chances are done for. He should just sit out this season. I don't like it. And a lot of people don't like this either, just because the message that it sends to NFL teams that you would quit, and that during a time of adversity, you don't handle it necessarily that well. And we see this advice is becoming way too common. Listen, I understand it if it's an injury and this player doesn't want to risk where they get selected. Obviously, we know where how high a player gets selected determines how much money they're going to make. And this is their decision completely. It's not anyone else's. But when we're talking about a player to the statue on the skill level like Caleb Williams, to say don't play, you're not going to win these awards, your team isn't going to compete for this, it's just nonsense. Because if you're a true competitor, you want to win every single game no matter what. If you have that type of fire in you, and that's what a lot of teams look for. Are you willing to compete when the circumstances aren't the best? And like I said, how do you respond to adversity? Because a lot of times, NFL general managers, and in the draft process, it's not just about what type of skill level you have, how many types of stats you put up. And on that subject of stats, I think it's ridiculous to judge a college football player's success or prediction of success in the NFL professional league by stats, because they're playing up against other college athletes. I think we need to look more at traits, and I think some people in the draft community look at it differently when we look at just pure stats. Because pure stats can't tell you whether a player is using such technique. Because in a league of the NFL where everyone is just about equal in terms of athleticism, it's the little things that get you by and separate you. Different topic, of course, but as to the draft process, a lot of NFL teams don't just judge players purely on their stats, how well they looked in games, how well they performed against other opponents. That's a portion of it, but a lot of it is how you respond and how you are within the locker room, how you are as a teammate. How do you respond to adversity? What is this guy like in the locker room? What is their personality like? Some will even go as far back to when they were in high school to see what they did in high school. Then you understand who they were in college. You talk to a couple teammates. You talk to people that they knew in high school, and that sort of deal. I'm sure everyone's watched the movie Draft Day, where that quarterback, Bo Callahan, viewed as this number one generational consensus prospect. But then again, they start interviewing him. They start finding out, well, not interviewing him, but they find out more about who he is as a person. Find out that he had a birthday party. Not a lot of his teammates showed up at his birthday party. And that's just what we see in the NFL draft process. So a lot of it, as I mentioned, isn't just how you play, but it's how you respond. And in an interview, I don't know if this was a recruiting interview or somehow, but Nick Saban, and it's out there on social media, YouTube, as well. Nick Saban is talking about the two most compelling words in a draft profile or when teams are looking at drafting a prospect is and or but. You can say, well, this good player, and he says the defensive back, for example, really good technique, fast, quick, has great recovery speed, can play multiple positions on the field, but caught speeding, failed a drug test, got into some issues with the police, etc. Or it could be and, or you could have a completely different player, does the same thing skill wise, and he's a great person, he helps out in the community, he's a model citizen, all of that stuff. That's a lot of what that process is like and how prospects are determined in what sort of rankings the teams put in place to see if you're a culture fit within their locker room. So to say a player should quit just because their team isn't going to get some type of stats and you're the quarterback when you take on the captain role, the leadership role, you're the voice in that locker room, is really nonsense and just bizarre to me. Those are my thoughts on it. Those are my thoughts on this podcast, talking about NBA, MLB, college football, NFL. Let me know, my audience out there, everyone listening to this podcast, what you think of this podcast. What your type of debates are that I've had you debating my topics. What you disagree with, agree with. Let me know your participation, your comments. I appreciate them. Once again, the links to my social media will be in the description. Make sure you go check that out. Like this video, subscribe. Let's get this podcast out there. I bet if I told the NFL that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce made a guest appearance on this podcast, I'm sure it would blow up. So let's make this podcast blow up. Tell me what you think about it, what I should talk about, what types of stories, pre-draft stories, those are always entertaining. Absurd, crazy recruiting stories where at the last minute some prospect flips their decision and a prospect you wouldn't think would commit to a different school decides to commit or decommit. I want this podcast to be for my listeners, for my viewers, audience out there. You want to debate me on a topic? Let me know. We'll schedule the time. I appreciate it. I appreciate all of y'all, all my subscribers, listeners, supporters. Y'all mean the world to me. Take care. Every day is a great day and a new day to achieve your dreams. God bless. Y'all take care once again. And until next time,